I showed up to my wife's company party like a man trying to be better, unannounced and a little late. The room reacted like I'd walked into the middle of a story everyone else already knew. My name's Ethan Parker. I'm 31, a software engineer, and I've spent the last few years acting like marriage is something you keep running in the background while you focus on the main task. Long hours, late deployments, just one more sprint. I said it like it meant something, like it was noble, like Madison. I should be proud of how exhausted I was. She never screamed about it. That's the part that should have scared me sooner. Madison Parker, marketing manager, sharp, organized, the kind of person who remembers birthdays without needing an app. Didn't nag. She didn't throw fits. She just wore this quiet disappointment like a coat she couldn't take off. A small pause before she answered me. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. It's fine didn't mean anything close to fine. Her company's annual party was that night. Hotel ballroom. Dinner, speeches, awards, pictures for social media. The kind of thing spouses usually attend. The kind of thing I usually skipped. I'd already told her I couldn't make it. Release week, I said, like that phrase fixed everything. But around 7:30, I pushed my chair back from my desk and just sat there staring at my monitors. The code blurred. Not because it was hard, because it suddenly felt pointless. There are only so many times you can choose work over a person before the person stops waiting. I checked my phone. One picture from her earlier. Madison in a dark dress, hair done, that practiced half smile. No caption. Just the image. Something in my chest tightened. Not jealousy. Not fear. Shame. The clean kind that doesn't ask for forgiveness. Just tells you the truth. I stood up. No dramatic moments. Just a decision. I pulled on a button-down that wasn't wrinkled, swapped my hoodie for a coat, and drove across town with both hands on the wheel like I was trying to keep myself steady. The city lights slid across the windshield in streaks. Every red light felt like it was judging me. The hotel sat downtown, too nice for my usual routines. Valet line out front. People were laughing, dressed like they belonged. I parked myself, didn't bother with the valet, and walked in with my heart doing that annoying thing it does when you know you're walking into something you can't control. In the lobby mirror, I looked like a guy playing catch-up. Clean enough. Tired eyes. Jaw tight. I followed the signs to the ballroom. The closer I got, the louder the music, the brighter the lights spilling under the doors. I told myself this was good. This was me showing up. This was me choosing my wife over a build pipeline for once. I pushed through the doors. Warm air hit me. Perfume, food, the faint burn of alcohol. A crowd in suits and dresses. A stage at the front. Clusters of people laughing too loud. And somewhere in all of it was Madison. I didn't see her right away, but I felt something shift the second I stepped inside. Like the room noticed me before I noticed it. At first I told myself it was nothing. A husband walking into a work party late. People notice, sure. They look. They whisper. That's normal. But this wasn't normal. It was the kind of looking people do when they've already decided what you are. Not curiosity. Not, oh, he made it. More like, oh no. Like I'd stepped onto a stage mid-scene and everyone was waiting to see if I'd read the script. I recognized faces from Madison's posts. The team dinner smiles, the conference selfies. A couple of guys I'd seen tagged in her photos turned their shoulders away the second our eyes might have met. One woman in a bright red dress lifted her glass, saw me, and froze like the drink had turned to glass in her mouth. She swallowed too hard and looked down at her phone like it could rescue her. My stomach tightened, slow and heavy. I took 2 steps farther in. People kept talking, but their voices dipped around me in a way I felt more than heard. A circle of laughter collapsed into awkward silence as I passed. I straightened my shoulders anyway. Pride is a dumb thing, but it's useful when you need your legs to keep working. I scanned the room. Stage at the front, banner with the company logo, a photographer by the step and repeat wall. I looked for Madison the way you look for a familiar car in a parking lot. Fast, focused, a little impatient. She wasn't by the tables, not by the bar, not near the photo area. I walked toward a group near the buffet. A younger guy, early 20s, company badge still on like he was new enough to believe rules mattered, stood with a plate in his hands, eyes bouncing anywhere but me. "Hey," I said calm. "You work with Madison Parker?" His head snapped up. He blinked like he'd been caught doing something wrong. Yeah. You seen her?" The pause was tiny. Too tiny. Like he'd rehearsed it. Like there was a right answer and he was trying to remember it. "Yeah," he said quickly. "She was around. Just around." "Around where?" He swallowed. "I don't know. Maybe the bar? Or, she went to talk to Ryan, I think." "Sorry, Ryan." The name landed heavier than it should have. Ryan Callahan, VP of Sales. Loud handshake. Barbecue guest. The guy who'd clapped me on the back once and said, "Man, you're lucky. Madison's a catch." My mouth wet dry. "Thanks," I said, and walked away before he could offer another lie. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself this was just my guilt trying to find a reason to punish me. But the room kept giving me the same message without words. "You're late." I moved through the ballroom slower now, not searching for my wife like a husband, but tracking her like something had changed in me, like my instincts had stopped asking permission. Near the side doors, a cluster of employees stood tight together. One of them saw me and nudged the others. They didn't smile. They didn't wave. They just watched me pass like they were watching a storm come in. I followed the edge of the room toward the hallway. The music faded behind me. The carpet swallowed my footsteps. And in the quiet, with the noise left back there, I realized I wasn't looking for Madison anymore to make things better. I was looking for her because I needed to know what everyone else already did. The ballroom doors closed behind me and the noise dropped off like someone cut a cable. Out here it was hotel quiet, soft lighting, beige walls, that faint smell of carpet cleaner and expensive nothing. The kind of place built for people to walk past each other without noticing. I noticed everything. The hallway split in two directions. Meeting rooms with brushed metal plaques. Franklin, Jefferson, Hamilton, a couple of utility doors. An exit sign glowing red like a warning. I walked slowly, not because I wanted to be careful, but because my brain was trying to keep up with my body. My pulse had moved into my hands. Cold fingertips. A steady heat in my chest. I passed an empty conference room with chairs stacked against the wall. A housekeeping cart parked crooked like someone abandoned it in a hurry. Farther down, a door was shut with a private event sign taped to it. Letters bold and confident like the sign could actually stop anything. I paused, listening. At first, there was nothing but the hum of vents and distant bass thumping through the walls. Then faint, muffled voices. A laugh, quick and soft. Not the kind you give your coworkers in a ballroom. The kind you give when you think you're safe. I took another step. There it was again. A voice I knew so well I felt it in my teeth. Madison. It came through the door like smoke, thin but unmistakable. A word I couldn't make out. Another laugh. Lower this time. A man's voice answering her. Close enough to sound like it was right on the other side. My brain tried to rationalize it for half a second. Maybe she stepped out to take a call. Maybe it's a meeting. Maybe. Then my stomach dropped hard. Because nobody takes meetings in a locked conference room during their own company party. Not with that tone in their voice. Not with the whole ballroom acting like they were watching a train approach the tracks. I stopped in front of the door. Hamilton, read the plaque. My hand hovered near the handle. I haven't touched it yet. I just stood there listening while the last part of me that still wanted to be wrong fought for air. And the rest of me, cold, focused, awake, accepted what I was about to learn. The handle turned with the kind of quiet resistance you only notice when your whole body is listening. The door wasn't fully latched, just pulled shut like someone thought that was enough. I eased it open maybe an inch. Light spilled through the crack. Dim, warm, wrong for a conference room. I saw the long table, the empty chairs, and a few abandoned folders from the day. And then I saw them. Madison was pressed into Ryan Callahan like she belonged there. Not a drunken stumble. Not a mistake caught mid-apology. Her hands were on him with comfort. Familiar. His head was bent toward her, his arm around her waist, pulling her in like he'd done it 100 times. My brain didn't explode. It didn't scream. It went quiet, like someone hit mute on my life. Ryan shifted and I caught his face in the sliver of the doorway. The same guy who'd been in my backyard, beer in hand, telling me I had it good. Same grin, just used differently. Madison said something I couldn't fully hear. Ryan answered, low and confident. Then he laughed, small, cocky. Relax, he said. He's not coming. He never shows up. Madison made a sound that was half laugh, half breath. I know. That part hurt in a way the visual didn't. Because it wasn't just that she was there with him. It was that my absence had become a fact they used. A tool. Something they agreed on like weather. My phone was in my pocket. My hand moved on its own. I slid it out, thumb shaking just enough to annoy me, and opened the camera. No flash, no sound. I held it against the crack and recorded. A few seconds, then more. Enough to show faces. Enough to catch voices. Enough to make denial impossible without insulting reality. Ryan murmured something close to her ear. Madison answered quietly. I didn't need every word to understand the tone. This wasn't a one-night accident. This was a place they returned to, a room they felt safe in. I pulled the phone back, ended the recording, and stepped away from the door like it might burn me. My hands were cold. My jaw felt locked. And in that moment, standing alone in a silent hallway, I stopped being a husband hoping to fix things. I became evidence. I didn't kick the door in. I didn't storm in and flip a table like in a movie. I just walked back toward the ballroom like my body had switched to a different operating system. Quiet, efficient, ruthless about the next step. The music got louder with every stride. Laughter again. Glasses clinking. A guy on the mic doing a speech about team culture. The whole place felt fake now, like I could see the wires holding it up. I moved to the edge of the room and found a corner near a column where the light was low and nobody had a reason to talk to me. People still watched. They tried not to. They failed. My phone was warm in my hand. I replayed the clip once with the sound off, just to be sure my eyes hadn't lied. They hadn't. My throat tightened anyway. Not from tears, from the pressure of holding myself together. I opened my contacts. Lauren Callahan was saved because Ryan had handed me his phone at a barbecue once to show me this hilarious video. And I'd ended up with his wife's number in a group text about parking. Normal life stuff. The kind you don't think will become a weapon. I typed, Lauren, I'm sorry. You deserve to know the truth. This was tonight. I attached the video. My thumb hover. There's a moment before you do something permanent where your brain throws every possible excuse at you. Maybe handle it privately. Maybe wait. Maybe you're overreacting. Maybe this will make it messy. It was already messy. I was just the last one to find out. I hit send. The little whoosh icon didn't look like much. No thunder. No dramatic soundtrack. Just reality leaving my hand and landing in someone else's life. Then I went to the next contact. HR. Madison's company had an HR director listed on their website. I'd seen the name in her email signature once when she forwarded me a benefits form. I searched, found it, and opened a new message like I was filing a bug report. Clear subject line, clean language, no emotion. Subject, formal complaint, misconduct during company event. I wrote, measured and direct. I attended the annual party tonight at hotel name. I witnessed and recorded conduct involving VP of Sales Ryan Callahan and employee Madison Parker in a private conference room during the event. This appears to be a serious violation of workplace ethics/policy. I'm providing the recording as evidence. Please confirm receipt. I attached the same clip. My thumb hovered again. This one wasn't revenge. It was containment. If I kept this personal, they'd make it personal in the way liars always do. Twist it, minimize it, rewrite it until I sounded crazy and they sounded unfortunate. I hit send. 2 sends. 2 doors slammed shut behind me. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel power. I felt something colder and cleaner. Clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't the only person living in the dark. I didn't go back to the hallway like a man hunting a fight. I went back like a man closing a file. The private corridor was still quiet. The Hamilton door was still shut. I stood there a second, felt the phone in my pocket like a weight, and knocked once. Firm, not angry. The voices stopped. Footsteps. A hurried shuffle. The door opened just enough for Madison's face to appear, eyes wide like she'd seen a ghost. "Ethan," she started, too fast. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Ryan was behind her, fixing his collar, trying to look like a professional again. Like a title could cover anything. Madison's lips parted. "This isn't." "Sit," I said. Not a shout, not a plea, just a word that left no space for debate. They hesitated, then both sat at the table like they were in trouble at school. That would have been funny in another life. I stayed standing. "I saw you," I said. "I recorded it." Madison's face drained. Ryan's jaw tightened. Ryan tried first. "Ethan, listen. This is being blown out of." I cut him off with a look. "Don't insult me." Silence snapped into place. Madison's hands trembled on the tabletop. "I can explain." "No," I said. "You can try. It won't change facts." Ryan leaned back, trying to reclaim air. "Let's talk like adults. We can keep this private." I nodded once, almost like I agreed. Then I pulled my phone out and set it on the table, screen down. "It's not private," I said. "I already sent it." Madison blinked hard. "Send it to who?" "Lauren," I said. "And HR." Ryan's posture collapsed in a way he couldn't hide. A flash of panic, then anger, then calculation, like watching a man realize the room isn't his anymore. Madison's voice went thin. "Why would you do that?" "Because you both assumed I'd never show up," I said. "You built this in my absence. I'm done cooperating with that." Ryan opened his mouth again. I slid my phone toward them, not to show the video, just to show I didn't need to. "And before you start calling it a mistake," I added, "save it. I've seen enough to know this isn't new." Madison's eyes dropped. Ryan stared at the table like it might offer him an exit. I stayed calm because calm is control. And control was the only thing in that room that belonged to me. I left the hotel alone. No final speech. No begging. No shouting match in the lobby for strangers to record. I walked out into the cold air, got in my car, and sat there with my hands on the wheel until my breathing stopped sounding like a fight. Madison called before I even pulled onto the street. I let it ring. She texted, then called again, then again. I didn't block her right away. I wanted the record, timestamps, frequency, the panic that shows up when the lie gets exposed. When I got home, I didn't pour a drink. I didn't punch a wall. I did what I've always done when something breaks. I documented it. I backed up the video to 2 places. I forwarded the HR email chain to myself. I made a folder on my laptop with a name so boring it made my stomach turn. Divorce. Then I went to bed on my side like normal, except nothing in the room felt like mine anymore. Monday morning I showed up to work like everything was fine, because that's what men do when their lives are on fire. They keep moving so the fire doesn't decide the direction. At lunch I stepped outside and made 3 calls. 1 to the bank to ask what was joint, what wasn't, and what permissions existed that I'd never thought about. 1 to change passwords, email, cloud storage, anything tied to money or identity. And 1 to a divorce attorney whose reviews all said the same thing in different words. Doesn't waste time. I sat in his office that afternoon. Simple room, clean desk, no drama. He looked at me like he'd seen my face 1,000 times. "Any kids?" he asked. "No." He nodded like that mattered, because it did. I laid out the facts. The recording. The timeline I suspected. The shared assets. The house. The accounts. The calls and texts I wasn't answering. He didn't flinch. He didn't moralize. He just said, "Evidence helps. Silence helps more." That became the plan. No contact unless it was in writing. No emotional conversations. No late-night closure. Just paperwork and protection. I walked out with a checklist, not comfort. Heartbreak didn't feel poetic. It felt administrative. And honestly, that saved me. Consequences don't show up with fireworks. They show up with emails, quick calls, and people suddenly speaking carefully. HR replied the next day. Short, formal. Receipt confirmed. Investigation underway. No comfort, no outrage, just process. But the process is a machine. Once it starts, it doesn't care who's sweating. By Thursday, Ryan wasn't at the office. On leave. Madison texted me like it was weather, like it wasn't the sound of his life tilting. I didn't answer. Madison started leaving voicemails that switched between calm and frantic. Apologies wrapped in explanations. Explanations wrapped in blame. She wanted me to share the weight so she wouldn't have to carry it alone. I didn't. 2 weeks later, the news hit the way office news always hits, quietly, then everywhere. Ryan was terminated. Ethics. Conduct. Words that mean we can't ignore it anymore. People pretended to be shocked, even the ones who'd looked away when I walked into that ballroom. Madison didn't get fired. She got moved, reassigned, sidelined. The kind of punishment that doesn't give you a clean ending, just a slow leak of reputation. Meanwhile, my attorney did what I paid him to do. He turned pain into leverage. The divorce moved fast because the truth was documented, not argued. There were no endless debates about what really happened. No fog. No room for her to rewrite me into the villain who worked too much. Yes, I'd been absent. I owned that, but I didn't make her lie. I didn't make her choose him. I didn't make her bring that kind of disrespect into our marriage like it was normal. I kept the house. She took what the law required and what she could carry without a fight. The numbers didn't feel like a win. Wins are for games. This was surgery. People love to call it karma when they're watching from a safe distance. To me, it was just the bleeding stopping. That's all I wanted. An end to the part where I was the only one paying for a story I didn't agree to. I ran into Madison on a Tuesday I didn't mark for anything. Grocery store. Late afternoon. The place was half empty. The lighting too bright. The air cold enough to keep produce alive and people polite. I had a basket with boring things in it. Eggs, rice, coffee, dog treats. Real life. The kind I used to think I didn't have time for. I turned into an aisle and she was there, standing still like she'd been dropped into the wrong scene. Her hair was pulled back, not styled. No work blazer. No confident posture. She was studying a shelf like the answer to her life might be printed on a label. When she looked up and saw me, her face tightened fast, like her body braced before her mind caught up. For a second, we just stared. Not the romantic kind. Not the dramatic kind. More like two people recognizing the wreckage and remembering they used to live inside it. She looked thinner. Not new start thin. More like the kind of thing you get when your appetite forgets how to show up. Under her eyes was a tired shadow that didn't care how much concealer you owned. I felt my chest do something small. Not anger. Not a spike. Just a dull pressure. Like touching an old bruise and realizing it's almost gone. Ethan, she said. My name sounded strange coming from her. Like it didn't belong to her mouth anymore. Madison. Kept it flat. Civil. The way you talk to a coworker you don't want to know better. She swallowed, eyes flicking to my basket. You look good. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was such a human move. To try to rewrite the moment with a compliment. To reach for a thread of normal when normal's already dead. Yeah, I said. I'm okay. She nodded like she'd been handed a verdict. Her hands hovered near the shelf, unsure what to do with themselves. I've wanted to talk, she said. Not to fight. Just. I cut in gently, because I didn't need to prove anything in a grocery store aisle. We don't need to. Her eyes widened a little. Ethan, I know you think I don't think much of anything anymore, I said. The truth landed clean. That's kind of the point. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked like she wanted to argue with that, but there was nothing to grab. No anger to bounce off. No wounds are still bleeding. I shifted the basket in my hand. Take care of yourself, I said, and meant it in the simplest way, like you'd say it to someone you once knew well. I walked past her without looking back. That's when I knew it was over for real. Not because I'd won. Not because she'd suffered enough. Because I didn't feel pulled toward her anymore. Not by love, not by hate, not by that old need to understand why. After the divorce, I didn't heal in a cinematic way. I didn't find myself on a beach somewhere. I rebuilt the way I fix systems. Remove what's corrupt, secure what's exposed, then build habits that don't rely on mood. I started with therapy, not because I wanted to cry on a couch, because I didn't trust what betrayal can turn you into if you let it sit. I'd seen men live off resentment like it was a diet. They get lean in all the wrong places: empathy, patience, self-control. They become predictable, easy to manipulate. I wasn't going to be that guy. Therapy wasn't comfortable. It was practical. The therapist didn't let me hide behind "I'm fine" and "it is what it is." She asked blunt questions. I answered bluntly. We talked about my work habits, my avoidance, the way I treated showing up like it was optional until it wasn't. I owned my part without using it as a leash around my neck. I was absent. I had been arrogant about it. I had treated Madison's needs like background noise. That was real. But her betrayal was also real. And it wasn't a response. It was a decision. Repeated, protected, justified. Learning to hold both truths at once. That I'd failed as a husband and she'd chosen to destroy the marriage was the first time I felt my spine lock back into place. Then I got a dog. It wasn't some new chapter symbolism. It was loneliness with a leash. I walked into a shelter on a Saturday, and a mutt with serious eyes leaned against the gate like he'd been waiting for someone who didn't talk too much. The shelter worker said, "He's calm. He likes routine." So did I. I named him Brick, because he was solid and quiet and didn't ask for speeches. He forced my life into shape. Morning walks, evening walks, food at the same time. The kind of structure that pulls you out of your head without asking permission. I slept better, ate better. I stopped working until midnight just to avoid being alone with my thoughts. I lifted weights again, not to impress anyone, but because my body needed proof I could carry something heavy and set it down. And slowly, my life stopped feeling like an emergency. That's around when I met Olivia Russo. Not at a bar. Not on an app with filtered photos and promises. I met her through a friend at a small tech meetup, one of those quiet gatherings where people talk shop and pretend they don't care what you do for a living while they absolutely care. She was an AI developer. Sharp, not loud about it. No performative confidence, just calm competence. When she spoke, it was clean and direct. When she didn't know something, she said so without trying to cover it with noise. That honesty hit me harder than any flirting ever could. We talked after the meetup. Not chemistry talk. Real talk. Work. Books. The weird ways people lie to themselves. She didn't push. Didn't pry. She let silence exist without trying to fill it. I like that. We started slow. Coffee. Walks. A dinner that ended early because we both had work in the morning and neither of us needed to pretend otherwise. No games. No tests. No drama disguised as passion. One night, months in, she asked, "Do you ever miss her?" I thought about it. Really thought. "I miss who I thought we were," I said. "Not who she chose to be." Olivia nodded like she understood the difference. That's fair. Later, lying in bed with Brick asleep at the foot like a guard who'd earned the job, I realized something important. Madison wasn't the center of my story anymore. Not as a villain. Not as a lesson. Not as a scar I kept poking to feel alive. She was just a chapter one survived and then closed. That's the ending that lasts. Peace that doesn't need an audience. Control that doesn't require punishment. A life where her choices don't reach into my day and move things around. Not because I forgot. Because I finally protected my dignity without letting bitterness drive the wheel.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.